I have watched YouTube since I was just 10 years old. I grew up watching people like PewDiePie, Jenna Marbles, Jackmate, Dan Is Not on Fire, Zoella, Crabsticks, Eric and Demisha from the Viral Brothers, just to name a few. They moulded me as a young person. They were so important, and each week I would wait so excitedly for the next video to come out. YouTube was just this consistent and safe place that I could go to, that was always going to be there, and I could look up to the people I watched, and this was the biggest source of comfort. The pace of videos, the type of content that's out there, it's changed a lot compared to when I grew up watching it, and I still watch YouTube almost every day. It's like a habit, it's a place of comfort that I'll always come back to. As a viewer though, I found myself kind of watching different channels than I did when I was a teenager. I'm watching more couples and family channels and vloggers like Connor and Leanna, Matt and Abby, Colleen Ballinger, Stephanie Buttermore when I want fitness advice, she's amazing. And when I just want to laugh out loud, I tend to watch the Try Guys. As a viewer, I feel like a lot of nostalgia about what YouTube used to be. I never saw myself making YouTube videos, mainly because I didn't know how to edit. Just the whole concept of editing blew my mind that people could do that. I also didn't have a camera, and I didn't know what kind of content I would want to create. So I've watched YouTube for years and years, for almost 14 years now. Not commenting or really interacting, but just being a silent viewer and watching my favourite people. I made it my 2023 New Year's resolution to start YouTube. So I have a camera now, I can kind of edit, but I still don't know the kind of content I want to create. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I just know that I can see myself more and more in the spaces that the YouTube today's opened up. Time is just fleeting so quickly, and I want to start capturing memories so I can look back at them in 10 years time and just have them there to cherish forever. I can't put into words how important Jenna Marbles was to me growing up as a young person. She modelled for me what a caring, loving, healthy relationship should look like. She modelled for me how to just be your authentic self. She just inspired me more than anyone. I really can't put into words how important she was. And when she stopped making YouTube videos, this consistent and safe space that had been there for the entirety of like my teenage years wasn't there anymore. I want to make content because of her, because she's inspired me, but also because life is too short not to just try, not to just go for things. And this brings me back to teaching. I've just completed my PGDE year. It's a 1-year teaching programme at Edinburgh University that looks like 3 teaching placements that are a couple weeks long each. And it's a qualification you have to have before you can work in a secondary school in Scottish education. From this year, from August, I will be in a school teaching my own classes, being paid, yes. And hopefully by this time next year, so June 2024, I will have met the full standard for teaching registration in Scotland. I want to create content related to my experiences as a student teacher, and I'd love to share that with people that are going through the same thing. I struggle massively to just sit down in front of a camera and talk. It's terrifying and nerve-wracking, but I'm hoping it will get easier with practice. Even though I finished my last placement over 2 months ago now, I've just struggled to make a video kind of talking about my teaching experiences, just because the emotions are still very raw and real, and I'm still taking the time to just process this whole year before I could actually just talk about it and reflect on it and how I'm feeling now. So how am I feeling? This year has been wonderful. It's been incredibly gratifying to work with young people, to work with colleagues. I feel like I've learned more about myself in this year than I have throughout my entire adult life. But the main thing I've learned is that I'm a perfectionist. I never thought about myself as a perfectionist before, but I set myself incredibly high standards and goals, and I tend to evaluate my self-worth based on my ability to achieve those goals, even if that's at the detriment to my mental health. I made the false assumption going into this PGDE year that by this point, after the 3 placements, I'd pretty much be a teacher, even if that meant ironing out some things. I figured by this point I'd be ready to teach, and I couldn't have been more wrong. Towards the end of that final placement there, I started feeling this overwhelming sense of failure, and it was really getting me down. That, on top of the fact I have quite bad anxiety, I made myself quite ill to the point where I had to take a couple of days off placement, and I had an anxiety attack a couple of weeks after the placement finished. And it all kind of came from these feelings of just feeling like a failure and not being good enough. Throughout the year I've had my doubts about whether or not, not the right career for me. Never once have I doubted that this isn't the right career for me, but when I say I've had doubts, I mean I've doubted from the outset whether or not I'm good enough to do this, whether or not I'm good enough for these young people. The young people I've met and the young people you'll meet if you're going into teaching are extraordinary, and they deserve nothing less than like the best teacher, the most perfect teacher. Having these high standards for yourself and having these high standards for the young people that you'll work with is so important. They do deserve the best teacher possible. But I have to cut myself some slack, and you need to cut yourself some slack if you're feeling similar. Because the PGDE year, the 1 year, is unlike anything, like any other work experience. You have to assimilate and adapt to this new environment, a completely new school. You're working with young people and colleagues you've never met before. You have to teach classes that aren't really your classes, and there's already structures and routines in place set by another teacher. You have to learn people's names, backgrounds, their additional support information like ADHD, dyslexia, autism. On top of all of that, you have to learn how to actually teach. And then you've also got your professional development portfolio, or that's what we call it at Edinburgh, like your online, like your portfolio of evidence. All of that in the space of a couple weeks is an extremely demanding task. It really is like being thrown in the deep end. In that first week, I felt so out of control and so terrified. I remember crying in the staff room, Googling, what else can I do with a history degree? Or how else can I work with kids that isn't history teaching? Because I just felt like I couldn't do it. And I've doubted myself in the beginning whether or not I'm good enough for these young people. This has been the most challenging, but the most rewarding year of my life. I could go on and on about the PGDE year. And if anyone wants to know more about my experiences or just has any questions, I'd love to answer them. But I'll end this video with advice that I need to listen to myself, and hopefully in that way I'm keeping myself accountable as well. I am not a failure, you're not a failure. Children don't need a perfect teacher, they need an accountable one. They need you to reflect on your mistakes and just learn to be better. You're not going to be the finished product after only 3 teaching placements. This is a lifelong career and we're always going to be learning. Aim for perfection, aim for the perfect lesson, but with the recognition or acknowledgement that you're going to fall short of that 99% of the time, and that's okay. Keep your standards high, but allow yourself to learn from the mistakes and keep moving forward. Don't burn yourself out. Whatever stage of your teaching journey you're at, whether or not you're considering applying or you're in the middle of a teaching programme or you're coming towards the end, you're doing an amazing job. Just remember, you're not alone. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this type of content, and I will see you in the next video.